Good day. You have come to the Speakers Bureau at this moment, and we, as always, have wonderful guests that we are able to interview, and they share their life story. And the purpose of the Speakers Bureau is to inspire and to educate and to motivate our students within our school district and students all over the country. It's so important that our children understand education and what that can bring in their lives and what that can do. So today we have our very own doctor here, and he's Dr. Paul Givoni, and he is a doctor of education, organizational leadership science. So it's the science of human behavior that you really focus on?
Yeah, so my concentration was in organizational leadership, but I'm a behavior analyst, a certified behavior analyst as well, and my focus is on bringing the science of human behavior to changing organizations. So a lot of people are familiar with applied behavior analysis as something that you use to work with children with disabilities, but the same science can be used to help improve outcomes for groups and organizations. It can be used for individuals. It actually, the science is like gravity. It's just everywhere. So understanding the principles of behavior can really help you to positively accelerate human performance and help people reach outcomes that they want and goals.
I certainly do agree with that. My degree, one of my degrees, is in psychology, which is the study of human behavior. And I think that is so extremely important in the scope of success in life. Because there are behavioral patterns that can take you down different paths of life. So it's so important to have be able to understand that.
It is, you know, before, like I came up in social work. Actually, I got my master's in social work because I really value helping people. And when I stumbled across the science of human behavior, I'm like, wow, there's actually a science for doing it. And for me, it was like having, not having 20/20 vision. And you kind of see things differently. If you understand like the principles of behavior, you can be more effective and efficient in what you do. And I see a lot of people, you know, in education or any organization, good people doing things that are probably not so great, and not because they're bad people, it's just because they think it works and they're seeing short-term outcomes, but they're not understanding the bigger picture and understanding like some of the basic principles of behavior. They would be able to reflect on their own behavior and how it's impacting those around them.
Yes, yes. So, you know, Speakers Bureau is about giving your life story. And so before you do that, I like to ask you, why did you choose to go into the field that you're in right now?
Yeah, you know, I think we all, you know, have struggles in life. You know, I have some things I had to overcome as a young man. I remember being bullied, you know, and you know, bullying. It's clear I actually ended up becoming a fighter. As you know, I was the Gold Gloves heavyweight champion of Florida, and I'm also a professional mixed martial arts coach. So it's very clear for me. I remember, you know, being my earliest memory being kicked down and sand, you know, thrown in my face by a couple of kids, and having a knife held to my throat, and moving out of the neighborhood and next neighborhood, getting beat up by the neighborhood bully, you know. And it wasn't like I was getting beat up every day, you know, but it was enough to have like a really negative impact on me. And so like I remember seeing other people being bullied and always feeling like I got to do something about this, but feeling afraid. But there was times I did try to do something about it, you know, like just, and I don't advocate for this, for fighting people, you know, but when you're out in the street, you know, somebody else getting picked on, I would try to fight for the kid, and I'd take a butt whooping for that, you know. So then I ended up, you know, learning how to box and getting into that. But like, I still like very much value seeing, you know, seeing people have follow their dreams and seeing people have good lives. I have a very good family. My mother, Susan Perry, my stepfather, John Perry, very valued people, really value helping people, and so that's always been in me.
So you were raised in the home with both mother and father?
Mother and stepfather, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And you know, a lot of love in the family.
That's great.
Yeah, I think that's at the root of it. You know, if people feel, you know, safe and cared for, you know, they can have some successes. But so I valued people, and that's why I got into social work and then moved forward.
And you said something real important. If they feel valued and cared for, they can have success. And you know, it's easier when you have it in the home, but it's so important for us as a community to also make sure that we have what kids need that do not come from such homes. And my own experience, I did not come from such a home. you know, where I had supportive parents. But I remember those few people that were in my life that spoke positively over my life and let me understand and know that I did have value in spite of. So we all have, like you said, we all go through different things in life, and I'm sure, and we can take that and build on it rather than let it tear us down and destroy us. It's, again, human behavior and how we're thinking that makes the difference.
I agree. If you can use that as a springboard, you know, for me, like the most challenging times in my life, I used as a springboard, but like, I feel like I have a safety net of people around me that care for me, you know, so a good support system. And to your point, like even in education, like, you know, one teacher can change a child's life, you know, for forever. It's very powerful.
Forever, yes.
Yeah, it's a huge responsibility.
Yes.
And you know, it could be as simple as it could be positive or negative, of course, you know, and of course we want it to be positive, but it could be something as simple as a child raises his hand to you know, read a story and has a very successful outcome from it, and they want to read more, or raises his hand, makes an error and gets ridiculed. I'm not necessarily saying by the teacher, but maybe a student laughs, and all of a sudden they don't want to read out loud anymore.
That's true.
And there's this negative so you know, these early childhood experiences are very powerful.
Yes, it helps to mold the thinking. In fact, I remember a particular teacher who was a substitute, and she was a long-term substitute, and it was time for her to leave, and she's a very nice lady, I remember that. But when it was time for her to leave, she broke down and started crying in front of the class because she didn't want to leave the class. I will never, that really spoke to me, values. That this woman cared so much about us that she would break down and cry before leaving. And I never forgot her. Yet there were many educators that I long forgotten about. But just like you said, just something so little that can take place that can affect the child's life. And so we should never think that that we just don't have enough input in someone's life.
So who was it? Was it Angela Mayo that said people won't remember what you said, they'll remember how you made them feel?
Exactly. Yes. So tell us a little bit more about what was it like for you growing up as a child? You said you had come from very supportive parents, and I mean that was really a blessing to have a supportive stepdad as well. Like he was, you might as well say he was dad, because
he was. He's
from
my
what
dad.
you said, you know, that was a strong foundation,
For sure.
so that he was dad in the household.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Yeah, no, there was just a lot of love in there. Always supportive of education, you know, wanted me to go forward. And I did very poorly early on in my educational career. You know, I didn't see it for whatever reason as something that was going to get me places. I used to surf back then, and it was almost like an addiction. You know, I'd just want to go surf. I'd get up, check the waves in the morning, and go surfing. And when I went to IRC for my first semester, actually, and I was in honors classes in high school, but I failed. I had 2 Fs and a D and a C, I think.
Wow.
And yeah, I was like, uh-oh.
So why did you go back to school? What was the reason? And you said you went to IRC?
Yeah, I went to IRC to start with,
Okay, I did also later on.
I think it's a great school. I've taught there as well. You know, it's an excellent school. Well, to be frank, and this goes back to the laws of behavior, you know, there was, I got actually hooked on a girl. And my folks said, you know, and I wanted to move down to Fort Lauderdale. They said, well, I'll make you a deal. We'll support you in your endeavors, you know, but moving down to Fort Lauderdale and continue, as long as you continue your education. But before you go and before you have our support with this, we want you to bring your grades up. So, I mean, they were actually using some of the principles of behavior right there. You know, there was a reinforcer I wanted, and they wanted some behaviors that were going to allow me to access that reinforcement. And of course, the next semester I brought it up to A's and B's. And, you know, if something's meaningful enough for you, you will do it. But then I went down there and I did okay in education. I started actually in education. I switched over to social work. And it really wasn't, I always tell people, you know, I encourage people to go back for education, and whether it's in, you know, it doesn't have to be higher education, it can be vocational, like follow your passion.
Skills that's out there. We have, I believe, 38 different career and technology skills that our students can learn now within our high schools.
Yes.
And that is so extremely important because that is education.
Absolutely.
We usually think of education as a 4-year degree, but education is being the best that you can be in a field of study, whatever that is.
I agree. In fact, I believe that we can borrow some things from what's going on in vocational education because one of the issues I know maybe we'll talk about it shortly is that in higher education you're getting a whole bunch of theory and very little rehearsal with feedback, and this is how we actually learn a skill. But in vocational you get a bunch of hands-on stuff, so you walk away. If people that work on our ACs, they might get a little bit of theory, but they have to do it, and they do it under somebody who's a master of it, and they learn, and they have this skill that they can bring in.
Becoming a master of whatever it is that you choose to do.
Yeah.
And our young people need to know that whatever they choose to do, become a master at that. Really work toward that. It could be what they love. I mean, what's the worst thing to go do something and you find out you don't like what you're doing? So you need to go for something that you love doing.
I believe that so much. I believe that if you follow your passion, that you have to, it has to be reasonable and rational, but find your niche, find like what you love to do, and you will become successful in it. But if you're showing up to work every day and you just don't like it, you're going to do just enough to get by. You're not going to be successful in that, and you're going to be unhappy all the time. And I think, I think a lot of people pursue careers for money. And I'm not saying money is a bad thing because we all have to have money to sustain, but I found some research that said once you start making over I think it's as a family over $65,000 a year, there's a diminishing return on investment in terms of how it correlates with happiness. In other words, more money does not make you happier, Yeah, but if you're doing something you love to do and it's meaningful to you, because I'm always in search of that, what's a meaningful experience? And for me, I really like to see people succeed. If I help them, I'm a coach at heart, if I'm able to help you and I see you and that light bulb goes off, it's very fulfilling to me.
I think of a lot of people that study social work or psychology or sociology is like that. We want to see other people succeed in life. That fulfills us to see others be able that light bulb to go off and they can make it through whatever they have to go through. I mean, for me, that's important.
It is, and I think you have to take care of self. You have to make sure that you're secure in that place. To be able to think that way. Almost like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I'm safe, I'm secure. But then if you can start using what you have to support others, and then wow, I mean, it really does feel good every time I see somebody do something. I feel like I had even the smallest part. Or I know that I've seen people come up to you in the community. They're very thankful. Have somebody come up to me after years ago, I gave some sort of training, and they said, "Oh, I remember what you said." I'm like, "You did?" Yeah, I learned so much. Wow, that sits with me for a long time. It feels good.
Do you have any particular stories that you would like to tell right now that can maybe inspire and motivate our children? It could be about someone else. I mean, you've talked about how you were bullied and what you went through, maybe whatever story in your life that made a difference.
Yeah, I think so. So for me, and I'll talk about my fighting for a second. I'm not suggesting that people go box. That's their way out. I don't think it's a good idea. It's not good getting hit in the head. But my first day.
And did you not say? I think earlier, before we got on air, did you say the first time you got in the ring, you got your nose broken?
Yep.
And that's the story.
Yeah. The first day I walked into a boxing ring, I was thrown in there with a professional fighter. Which not a great idea. I didn't know better, and I got my nose broken. It's still broken to this day. For whatever reason, whatever's going on in my life, I kept coming back day after day, broken nose, blood coming out, taking a beating. And from that, I always wondered how many potential world champions walk through the door in boxing gyms everywhere, only to take a beating and never come back thinking they didn't have what it takes. And the issue isn't in them. It's not they don't have the potential, because everybody can do it. It's not that somebody can't do it. It's that, honestly, I shouldn't have been allowed in the ring until I had the proper skills. So if somebody goes to pursue something and they're not successful, it's not that they can't do it, right? It's that they need to have the preparation, they have to have the knowledge, the skills, the repetition with feedback so they can build those skills. And then when they go in there and they try to do these things, they have these mastery experiences. And when they have that, they get in touch with the success or building what we call self-efficacy, their belief in their ability to accomplish some sort of task. So for anybody out there right now that thinks they can't do something, they can do it. They just have to be properly prepared. And we have teachers right now that think they can't teach. I'm like, no, you can do it. You just haven't had the proper preparation. There's no doubt about it you can teach. I've seen one class struggling and another teacher come in there and very same students, and it's beautiful. It's not that that teacher is less of a person.
The skills that are necessary.
That's right.
I often talk about Michael Jordan and his life with the students and share with them how in the 9th grade, he didn't get accepted on the basketball team. He tried out for it, but he didn't give up. And he really began to practice that skill before he would go to school in the morning. His dad would help him. They'd get out there on the basketball court. And look at what he became. And he carried that all his life, kept the skill up, kept it, did what he had to do. So, yeah, it's hard work. Whatever's worth having, you're going to have to work hard at.
But what you just said comes to the root of it. And it's that, and the research says this too, it's not about your talent. People think, oh, there's talent. It's about consistency. The people that are the most successful stick to things over time. And they look for indicators showing them that they're getting maybe a little bit better, and then they can delay that stuff. But the ones that are successful are the ones that stick to it. So that's why, and people will stick to things where they see value in the outcome. So that's why it's so important to follow your niche, because you're going to do those things even when somebody's not telling you to go do it, because you're interested in it. It's reinforcing to you.
Dr. Givoni, you have written books, and you have one that's become a bestseller.
Yeah.
It's called Deliberate Coaching. Would you tell us a little bit about this book, please?
So Deliberate Coaching, a toolbox for accelerating teacher performance. I wrote that with a co-author, Dr. Nick Weatherly. He's actually a professor at FIT and a good friend and expert in organizational behavior management, something that we both are passionate about. The purpose of the book is that what we were just talking about, and I think I might even use that analogy about taking a beating the first time I came into the ring there, is that I truly believe that teachers and school leaders are being thrown into the schools unprepared to meet the demands. And it's not, because when we have like 50% of our teachers leaving the field inside of 5 years, especially the ones that are serving schools in high poverty, it's not the teachers that are the issue. There's a systemic problem. And there's a lot of variables that can impact that, but here's what I believe one of the major issues are. In higher education, and I've taught in it, and I'm not saying all because there's some fantastic prep courses out there, prep programs out there. But and the research says there's research by Joyce and Showers, and it shows that if you only get theory with something, and they did research on giving teachers some sort of training and seeing how it transferred into the classroom. If you only get theory on something, the transfer of skills in the classroom are 0%. If you get theory and modeling, 0%. If you get theory, modeling with rehearsal and feedback, you will learn 60% of the knowledge and 60% of the skills. In other words, you can tell somebody about it and you can actually perform it, but you're still only getting about 15% transfer of the skills in the classroom. And if you think about it right now, a lot of the prep programs and trainings that we have are theory and modeling, which means that, and again, the analogy I'll make is I can't tell a fighter how to fight and expect they can get in there and perform. They're going to take a beating.
So that's only a small percentage of what. There's other things that need to be included with that theory and
that's right. But that's the major part of prep courses is theory and modeling. But even with rehearsal and feedback, you get the knowledge and skills, and you need that because you have to learn the skills. So the book is about, once you have the skills, how can you get those skills to transfer into the natural environment? In this case, i.e. the classroom or the school, for school leaders too, because school leaders get almost all theory. They don't get to go in there and lead a school, right? They're with rehearsal and feedback. So the book talks about that. It's the first one that actually defines coaching ever by form and function, meaning that training is concerned with skill acquisition. Coaching is concerned with transference of those skills into the natural environment. So I have to teach my fighter how to throw punches, how to slip and roll, right? So if I'm teaching a new skill, maybe it's slipping, I can't say, okay, I want you to slip this punch, right? And maybe I give them the good skills, but then I throw him in there with a professional fighter and expect he's going to slip and do it effectively. He's going to take a beating. But I can put him in there with a fighter, and the fighter's just throwing one punch at him, and now he's getting lots of repetition with doing it, and I'm able to give him a little bit of feedback because he knows the skill already, because I gave him a lot of repetition outside the cage, and that little bit of feedback helps him to make that minor adjustment, and now it works for him. I don't get hit, and that's a good thing. And so now he's got the skill, he sees it work for him, that builds his self-efficacy, and now he wants to do it again in the future.
So how do we transfer that to students in the classroom?
Yeah, so first of all, if we're going to bring out the best in the students, we have to bring out the best in the teachers. And if we're going to bring out the best in the teachers, we have to bring out the best in the professional developers and the school leaders. And that's going to trickle down to the students. So for example, a lot of teachers struggle with classroom management. And it's unfortunate because only 1 in 3, this is the latest research I read, colleges actually provide training in classroom management, which is odd since so many are leaving because of it. So we have to make sure that that teacher first understands what classroom management is, make sure that they can perform it, and then as they go to perform it in the classroom, somebody comes through and gives a little bit of coaching. In other words, they have the skills because they got a good training, not a sit and get. They got lots of rehearsal with feedback in some basic what we call pinpoints of behavior so they can actually perform. Things like how to positively reinforce, how to correct behavior, how to pre-correct behavior, how to assess it, right? So you got to, how to ask questions, right? That's a simple way to engage students, in engagements incompatible with off-task behavior, right? And which means your disruption goes down, which means people learn. But telling teachers to do these things is ineffective. The research and the science tells us that telling is insufficient for getting somebody to perform. If that's all it took, I'd say, okay, sit down and learn. Go teach, you know what I mean? Or the theory part would stick. I'd give you all these theory, I'd tell you why instruction's good, and I'd tell you how to do it, but that's not the way it works. You have to rehearse it a bunch, and you have to get a little bit of feedback for somebody to make those adjustments, so when you do it and you perform it, you see it work for you.
So it sounds like teachers need coaches.
That's what I'm talking about. It's the teachers. This is about teachers. This is accelerating teacher performance.
And having a coach that can help them through a certain length of time. And we do a lot of that within the district now, and I am proud to say that from the time I started as a board member to now, we have increased in all type of areas because we are bringing a lot of what you're saying in this deliberate coaching into St. Lucie County Public Schools.
Yeah, and that's the deal.
As a result, we're 1 point from an A district.
Congratulations.
As a result, we're in the 90 percentile, the highest graduation rate on the Treasure Coast. I mean, things have really changed from the time I first came in. We were low C in 2010. So, and it's because the teacher is getting a lot more training, but also coaching as well, and that's what that book is about.
Yeah, and all the way up too. I know your school leader's getting coaching now, which is fantastic. There's measurements out there in terms of like climate surveys, so they're getting feedback on it. Hey, here's people's perception. Here's what you're doing well. Here's some areas that you're struggling. How can I help you with that? Because they need coaching, but you can't have any coaching without measurement. And not just the
teacher, but the principal as well.
That's what I'm saying.
All of the leaders, and we bring district leaders to go into the schools and really work with the schools one-on-one. Now, this book here is called Quick Wins. Now, which one did you write first?
So I wrote that book first, Quick Wins, Accelerating School Transformation Through Science, Engagement, and Leadership. And actually, that book came out. I've worked with a guy named Dr. Scott Neal. He was one of the principals here, and he was struggling at a school. Actually, it was Lakewood Park a while back. He was at a C, and he wanted to bring it to an A. And we started implementing some of the basic organizational behavior management principles to kind of get over that hurdle, and brought it from a C to A there. And then we moved over to St. Lucie Elementary, and we had the same thing happen. Went from a C to A there, and then we started the first turnaround team in the district, which is now the instructional partners, to start doing some of those basic principles. So really it's about, Quick Wins is about engaging your stakeholders, in this case your teachers, in whatever initiative you're bringing. So if I'm trying to get you to be involved with something, there are very simple things that you can do. But where you really want to start, especially if you're a new leader, is doing something that doesn't require a lot of effort for the teachers to do, and something that has a positive outcome for them, and something that's very visible. So in these cases, because both the schools were struggling behaviorally, we'd go in there and we'd focus on things that were very visible to people. Make sure there was paint on everything, and that's not the simple fix, right? But that might be a quick one. But in terms of behavior, because they were struggling, looking at the hallways, looking at arrival time, looking at transitions, looking at the cafeteria, looking at the dismissal, because if you can shape those things up and people see that there's a change, because those are important times of the day. If kids come in and they're overly aroused because there's not good structure and they're not being greeted and praised or having made to walk back if they run, they get overly aroused and they go into the classroom and the teachers become overwhelmed because now you got all these kids and it starts the day off. You want to like take the plane off nice and easy, and you want to land it the same way. And by the same virtue, if they go in the cafeteria and they're overly aroused and things are crazy in there, well, that over-arousal comes back into the classroom. The teachers become very frustrated, impacts achievement, and now if you have that multiplied across the whole school, this impacts your climate, this impacts your culture. So this is about getting teachers to believe in what you're doing, getting them to believe in themselves that they can do it, and it just gives them very simple, practical strategies that are rooted in the science of human behaviors. It's not wrong. There's nothing. These are actually, both these books are what would be being called seminal in education, because nobody's written things about organizational behavior management in terms of school leadership and coaching in there.
Impact and visibility. And you have effort here. Talk about that a little bit more. I know you've been talking about it.
So if I ask you to do something and it requires a lot of effort, as a teacher, you have a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of stuff. And, you know, unfortunately, the district, because the teachers aren't getting the prep I believe that they should, it becomes overwhelming for the teacher or for the district leadership, because you don't have enough resources to support the needs of the teachers. And they need good training and they need good coaching, but you have X amount of time to train them and you only have limited coaches when the needs are high. So asking a teacher to do something, if you ask them to do something difficult, they're probably not going to do it because they have so many other demands. But if you ask them to do something that's very easy, show them how to do it, and so it requires a little effort. And if they do it and they see some sort of positive outcome, in this case, behavior's better as a result of you doing that. If people engage in a behavior and they see a positive outcome, again, they're going to continue to engage in that behavior whether you're there or not. If I show them some sort of questioning strategy and they use it and they see the kids are more engaged and the behavior's going down, they're going to continue to do it. It's called, we call it getting people in touch with naturally occurring reinforcement. And really, it's the height of leadership. We call it discretionary effort, getting people to go above and beyond even when you're not looking. But it's a systematic approach for doing it.
And I like what you said, just a little bit at a time, you know, breaking it down in smaller pieces rather than overwhelming. And this is the same thing with kids. I work with kids every day. I tutor a lot of kids. I work with them on the preschool level, etc. And teaching them, even when you're teaching them their word spelling, many of the children don't know that if they break it down, they can get it. They're trying to learn all the words at one time, and that's when they lose it. So listen, we have had a wonderful conversation, but we ran out of time. But I want to thank you so much for coming out of your busy schedule and always being willing to help. I appreciate everything that you've done in the community and what you are doing. And your wife is so wonderful over there.
She's a better half.
She's still at Cass?
Yes, she is,
Yeah, so they are blessed to have Nikki over there. And Paul, just thank you so much because you're always willing and ready to help, and I appreciate you.
Congratulations to you and the district. It's good to see it moving in a great direction.
Thank you. I appreciate you as well.
Thank you.